Welcome back to the Well-Worn Path. Let's journey down our little path here again today. I want to share with you just something that came to me even this morning from someone who I just really am very fond of, my nephew, Matt. Hopefully, he's going to watch this one of these days, but I read it and I just find it interesting. There's these little obscure passages, verses that we're just like, what in the world? Where'd that come from? Was that put in there? And this is the verse that he sent me today. Matthew 13:1. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. And I loved what Matt said in there when he texted me that verse. And he said he's just fascinated by that verse. And he's a pontificator. He's a pontificator, and he's wondering how long did Jesus stay there, you know, and it's a good question. How long do we stay on this path, this walk we're taking? And it is it a metaphor? It probably, I don't know that really happened, but I know it's true. It says that Jesus went out of the house and he sat by the lake. So I'm going to assume in this situation he sat by the lake. But is it a metaphor for us as well? I think about my neighbor Dave, who the one day he was sitting out there. I'm sure I've shared this story with you before, but he was sitting with Libby, his Australian shepherd at the time. She was getting older, and I stopped over to see him, and I said, I thought you were supposed to be working, giving him a hard time, as I often do. And he says, well, Mark, I'm sitting here and taking time with my dog because I don't have much time left with her. I just want to say something real quick here. I appreciate very much when you take time out of your day to walk with me briefly down this well-worn path. A path I've walked and a path that we're walking, and I've shared with you, we make the path by walking it, right? A path doesn't get made unless you walk it, and so we're walking this path together, and it's getting a little bit deeper as we go. The path is, that is, and it's kind of a leaving the house and sitting by the lake, isn't it? Who knows? But maybe our path is going to lead us down to a lake at some point, down by the sea. Whatever it is, wherever that place is where you need to go. And I hope the well-worn path is one of those places where you can go and say, man, I just enjoyed that little chat with Pastor Mark and gave me some things to chew on. Think about a cow path, cows chewing on the cud, for a little while. And something for me to chew on as I walk down this path. But I think there's something really very interesting about this. And I love those moments that we see in Scripture, especially with Jesus, where he went off by himself. He went off by himself to pray. Of course, he did the one time, and he had a couple guys with him and left them behind, and he went and prayed by himself. There's times you need that. Solitude is a spiritual discipline, one that we don't typically use. Silence usually accompanies it. It's a good one to accompany it. I took a friend of mine about an hour away to a hospital the other day, and because they were having some procedures done, and I had an hour-long drive back home by myself. And I said, Lord, I've had my time of yammering at you this morning. I'm just gonna ride today. I'm just gonna drive, and would you speak to me today, God, in this hour? This is your hour. I had mine this morning, probably wasn't an hour, but And it was interesting, God actually, I felt, spoke to me. He's actually been speaking to me all week long. That ride is taken, it seems to be longer than I realized. But I'm sitting with this verse, and it's interesting because all these large crowds came to Jesus. Recently, I was at a retreat, and the person leading the retreat was talking about getting into a state of mind before we talk to people, whether it's a big group or even a small group. Getting into a state of mind and having a ritual that helps you do that. Some people, they have, it could be just silence, it could be prayer. Maybe they need to jump up and down and give themselves affirmation or whatever it is. But we need to have times when we leave the house and we go sit by the sea. We need to have times that we leave our normal routine, that which is comfortable, and go to a place sometimes that says, this is my time, this is my place, this is what I need to do. Where I can get quiet, I can center myself and get myself in a state that I am ready for the work that God has for me to do. Maybe it's going and listening to some music, whatever it is. But to be in that place where before we do the work, we approach the large crowds, that whatever it is that God has for us to do, that we find ourselves and just say, I know what, I need to come away by myself for a moment. Jesus said that he come apart lest ye fall apart. That's the Hanson Loose translation. Come ye apart and get some rest. Jesus took naps. Jesus had to get away from the crowds sometimes. I love how he kind of disappears sometimes. As a pastor, I've learned when there's sometimes it can be too much for me. I love being around people, but I can drain out really fast. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll sneak away and I'll just spend about 5 minutes to myself, to collect myself again, to recharge my batteries so that I can go back out and hobnob, and I hope that's not a bad phrase. But anyway, go grip and grin, as the pastor said. Go after church and go out in the hallway and grip and grin. So I want to encourage you today, folks. Again, maybe it's a well-worn path. Maybe sitting by the sea is not for you, but maybe going down the well-worn path is. Maybe just having a moment of solitude and silence and to get centered with the Lord. And say, Lord, this task that you have for me, this daunting situation that is coming to me. A friend of mine shared with me today that he says he feels like he's been a sparrow in a hurricane the last 6 months. Sometimes we just need to get out of the hurricane, take shelter, and say, I'm going to sit by the sea. It was exciting to me last night. Here it is, February, and hearing thunder and seeing lightning. That was exciting for me to see that after a season of snow. And to stop and take that moment to pet your dog, to watch it thunder, or listen to it thunder and watch it lightning, hear the rain on the roof. Whatever it is, but to say, God, this is my time with you so that I am ready to do what I do. I love what was said of the disciples. They could tell that they had spent time with the Lord. My weekend routine for getting ready for Sunday is on Saturday night. I spend time in prayer and to spend time with the Lord, because what I want more than anything on Sunday morning is not the greatest sermon that I've ever preached, but that the people who I am preaching to can tell that I have spent time with the Lord. So, thank you, Matt, if you're watching this, for reminding me of this passage that says, get out of the house and go sit by the sea, whatever that may look like for us. So, in the meantime, thanks for joining me on this well-worn path. Until next time, I'm Pastor Mark. Grace and peace.